Thank you all for joining this episode of SYCL360's The Human Element interview series. With me is Dr. Christopher Farnsworth, and I'm Joe Weinstein, your host today. Welcome, Dr. Farnsworth.
Thanks so much, Dr. Weincheck, for having me. Really excited to do this.
All right, so I have a series of questions I'm going to ask you. And to start off, the first one is, what advice would you give somebody starting out in their first position in lab medicine?
Oh, that's a great question. I feel like the transition from being a student to going to an actual professional job at any level, whether that be, from as a laboratory technologist or even as a medical director, I feel like there's so much from those two jumps. Like they're just such very different places to be in training versus no longer in training. But I think that the biggest thing that I felt like I had to learn was just time management in general, particularly as a young medical director. I feel like there's so many things, that we can take on. A lot of them are good things, and this might be bad advice, but I feel like it's very important for us early on to take in as much as we can and really soak in the field and say yes to a lot of things before we say no too much. And the downside of that, though, is that you end up taking a lot of things on and you tend to be very busy. So it becomes very important to learn, how do I manage my time in an effective way that's really helpful. So the ways that I did this were really learning how to use a calendar, like the Outlook calendar that I have access to, and really scheduling things out, even like my own breaks or scheduling out time to write. Really learn to lean on like admin staff where I've had the possibilities and capabilities to do it, and even giving up control of certain things that I love to do. For example, a lot of the writing of manuscripts and things, I've really leaned into trainees for that, or even some of my own technologists in the research lab or in the hospital lab at times, to do things that I otherwise would have done myself, to focus on some of the other things that maybe aren't always as life-giving, but are really important to do as a medical director. So I think time management for us is key, and really learning that as young medical directors and even trainees is crucial.
Thank you. I absolutely agree. Time management is something that is really important to get kind of under control in the early parts of your career. All right. So for our second question, I wanted to ask, what is the exact height of the Gateway Arch in St. Louis? And I will accept feet, inches, or meters.
Oh, no, I do not know this trivia question. So I'm actually terrible at trivia. We have a trivia team, and I am by far the heaviest baggage. It has no value that they provide other than just my social, we'll call it capability, but mostly incapability. I would guess, how far off is 2,000 feet?
It's 360 feet, 7,360 inches, or 190 meters. How have you enjoyed visiting, or have you enjoyed visiting the Gateway Arch?
Okay, the Gateway Arch is really cool, really, really neat, massive. Really cool museum inside about like moving to the Midwest, which is awesome. But one of my favorite things is there's actually a hotel across the street that has a neat bar and a restaurant on top. And it's a little bit shorter than the Gateway Arch, but it's a really cool view. And then the other side is Busch Stadium where the Cardinals play. So it's like this 360 view where you can see both. So I actually really enjoy that. So it's just such a cool environment to kind of take in, what is the kind of the expansion to the Midwest and that national park.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Dr. Farnsworth, and we appreciate your questions.
Thanks for having me, Joe. Take care.